I just briefly want to tell you in just a few minutes a little bit about myself and why I'm running for this office and what I hope to do. I grew up down in Pueblo, and two of my longtime best friends from Pueblo are here, Joe Novak and Brian Davis, and I grew up in a very blue-collar family. And my father had an 8th grade education, and my mother didn't graduate from high school, but they always had a passion about what was happening in politics and for certain candidates and so on, and that transferred over to me. And so I have spent my life really being interested in politics and policy, and as John said, taking it to the ultimate and eventually getting a PhD in public policy and focusing on this very issue that he was talking about, growth and development and sprawl here in Colorado. There certainly are other issues out there. As I walk my district, and I've been able to knock on hundreds of doors so far, the two issues that come up in most people's minds are healthcare and education. And so real briefly on those two issues, you know, healthcare is certainly important. As I said a couple weeks ago when we had our kickoff, I think it's a shame that there are almost 200,000 children in this state who don't have healthcare, 700,000 or so Coloradans who don't have healthcare. I think this is going to become a national issue. We hope if there's a President Obama or Clinton or Dodd or Biden or any of those people, I'm sure that it will become a priority. And in the state of Colorado, we have a 208 commission looking into it, and I hope to be able to be a part of that in the near future with Suzanne and her colleagues. Education, we certainly have a lot of work to do there. Suzanne spent many years in the classroom, as did I. I guess my one biggest soundbite, if you will, about education is what the Denver Classroom Teachers Association representatives are saying right now. Ask a teacher what's going on in the schools. Certainly parents and certainly administrators and certainly the people in the legislature all have a say in this because we all pay taxes and we all have a stake in a well-educated society. But I really believe until you know the ins and outs and the ebbs and flows and the day-to-day happenings of a public school, especially in a demography such as Denver or Aurora or these large districts, that you really can't be in touch with what's happening. So I have a lot to say about CSAP. I have a lot to say about social promotion that's apparently being advocated right now in Denver, much to the chagrin of the teachers, and 3 strikes and you're out discipline policies and so on. But I think tonight we need to get to the issue that John spoke so eloquently about and that I've always had a great passion for, and that is the environment. As I said, I grew up down in Pueblo, and as Brian can attest, I've known him since I was in 2nd grade. I lived in a house that was on the very southwest edge of the city. And when you walked out, you could look over here to the northwest, and you could see Pikes Peak. And all that was in between was rolling prairie and cactus and trees and wildlife. And we used to run through the fields, and we would see foxes, and we would see all this beautiful wildlife. And then, of course, as I grew, there was a house behind us, and then another house, and then there was a boulevard behind us, and then there was another subdivision. And then Pueblo West came in. And then as I moved around the state more and more, we started to see more growth, of course, in the metro area, and now in the mountain area. And John and I had an opportunity to talk a little bit before we came, and we all know that global warming is a big issue now. We all know that transportation is a big issue. But these things are all connected. We can't cave our way out of a transportation problem. We keep putting down blacktop, we add to the global warming problem. We add to the sprawl problem, and the list goes on and on. But as he just mentioned, and as him and I talked about, I would like to get back to 2000, and the conversation that was happening then was, what do we do about growth and development? Because he and a lot of people lent their names to what I thought was a decent initiative that was going to address this issue, and it was ahead of the polls, 60 to 40, I believe. And then the development industry came in and dumped $6 million into the campaign, and of course, we lost. So I have written about this, I have studied about it, and I don't want to go into the great details now, but actually in a class I wrote a bill that addressed this issue, and I got an A on the paper. I don't know if that would happen in the legislature. But it's harder to do. I assume that. And I don't know if we could do it all in one chunk, but it would be probably more piecemeal. And long story short, it tries to get planning in a more regional fashion than simply local. Planning about transportation, planning about sales taxes, planning about education, and who makes the decision to build, and so on and so forth. So again, I'm most appreciative of you, Suzanne, and to you, John, especially. Thank you so much for everything. I want to be an advocate for the environment. I want to be an advocate for our kids. I want to be an advocate for the state of Colorado. Really appreciate your support. If you could write a check, if you could sign our volunteer list, if you could us out in some way, that would be most appreciated. And again, thank you for coming, and please enjoy yourself. If you haven't wandered around, do so. It's just beautiful back there.
Thank you, Matt.